Good afternoon. Howdy, everyone. Ed Nile here, author of The Iron Shield Chronicles, beginning with Iron Strife, Iron Valor, Iron Exiles, and Iron Revolt, and author of the upcoming epic fantasy Godless, Book 1 of the Zadra Cycle, and whichever side I freaking put that on the screen. And to get the plugs out of the way, I've been chugging along at editing Godless and getting it ready for its first proofing stage, where I order the proof copies, and that should be the book itself should be released in May, assuming everything goes the way I want it to. So far, I'm feeling pretty good about it, and that's kind of what leads to the topic of today's video is when you start to something called imposter syndrome. And I had to look it up again just to make sure, because I hear it a lot in writing groups I'm in, and I certainly have described myself as, I've never really described myself as feeling it, but I think now looking at the definition, which if I could just pull it up real quick here, those who suffer from the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. And I realize it's something that's been plaguing me and plaguing a lot of people for ages, whether or not we name it or not. Now, people usually kind of get this sensation when they're coming from a place of success. They'll describe, this imposter syndrome, like they don't feel they deserve it, and we kind of treat success, especially in any kind of artistic ventures, as a society. We treat it like almost like a lottery. We treat it like, oh, that person got super lucky, and we kind of ignore the years of effort and sacrifice that go into really any successful endeavor, especially in the arts, especially in whether it be writing, whether it be drawing, any of that. We kind of forget about that and look how easy that person's got. They just sit and write books all day and they make a living, and we kind of don't really think about it in the terms. If you're watching this, or if you've watched my stuff, chances are you have a bit more of a realistic idea of what that industry looks like. But at the end of the day, imposter syndrome is a symptom of what we as a society push onto people, because we have this kind of boomer myth about our relationship with labor, that unless you're miserable when you're doing it, unless it's something that unless it's just a grind and a slog and you come home tired and, sore and miserable, it's not real work. If you enjoy yourself doing it, I had a parental unit or a family, and, certainly family members who were stuck in this mindset where anything that you enjoyed, anything that was, came naturally to you, that you had a natural inclination to drive yourself towards, that wasn't, just working for someone else, immediately not real work, doesn't count. Doesn't matter if it's even making money, or if it will make money, it does not count, because you enjoyed it. It's just a hobby. You enjoy it, it's just a hobby. It doesn't matter. It's not until you reach this pinnacle of financial success that people start treating it, and then they still treat you like you won a lottery. It's not the way it works. We put hard work into what we do, and I've made many sacrifices in my life, and by the sacrifices in my life, I've steered my entire life towards always guaranteeing I can write. My entire life, I've never, I don't go for promotions when I'm at a job. I try to, I literally will live at the barest minimum I need to survive, as long as that job allows me to get some writing done, because I want to have a balanced life. I want to have time with my spouse. I want to have time with my friends. I want to be able to do things. And I know if I want to write the amount I write at the level I do, then, if that 8 hours of my day is entirely spent, just hyper focused on something else, my friends and family aren't going to see me. They're not going to hear from me in my time off, and it's just not a very, sorry, I accidentally hit stop on the record. It's like I say, it's not a very nice existence to just have no downtime, not be able to watch a movie with some friends, not be able to, play a game, go out for a hike, any of that. To have all your time just work and then your other goal. That's kind of what it takes. And certainly I've been through situations where that was clear, that was the reality, where I was in those hyper real kind of work situations, and like from my lunch break to my, my bus ride home to when I'm home, just every second is spent writing, right? And people don't understand it. We're caught in this kind of middle ground where if you want to excel on a professional level in an art, you have to treat it professionally. You have to put daily effort. You can't just treat it like a hobby, except for the fact that everyone else in the rest of the world, in the rest of life, will treat it like a hobby. And so they won't understand. Your friends who are in the normal kind of, in the normal job market and in the normal career path will say, why are you stressing over that? It's just this fun little hobby. Meanwhile, the publishers, the agents, the audience that you're trying to go for will expect you to be professional. Being professional takes time. It takes real effort. It's, again, falling into what I've said before in a couple of videos now. Your dreams and goals have consequences. It should be a consequential thing in your life where you spend legitimate time on it. No one just goes to to university and has it be just this inconsequential little thing that they're not making an effort at. No one goes into a huge aspiring career path and just treats it like a little hobby. It's not how it goes, but you're expected to treat art that way by everyone who's not your audience, everyone who's not the businesses that you're hoping to deal with, everyone else in your life. And it's this needle you've got to thread through a lot of it. And this is what leads me to think about imposter syndrome. We are societally conditioned to view anything that comes from our natural inclinations as having inherently less value than forcing ourselves to the grindstone of some irrelevant task that we're just doing for a paycheck. And there's this old saying, like, do what you love for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And it's kind of it's true, but it's also the opposite. I've spent more hours straight focusing in on a book I knew wouldn't make my money back. I've spent more straight hours focusing on that, hyper focused, than I ever have working a 9 to 5. I've spent, realistically, I'm never going to make profit off the time I put in. I could start making six figures tomorrow, and it would take years before I could catch up to the hours I've actually put in and the stress and the lifetime I've actually put in, to my books. That's just kind of how this goes, because we're not doing it for the money. That's the other side of it. We're not doing this for the money. It doesn't mean we don't want to make a living off of it. In the end, you want to be free. You want to do the thing you love for a living. And maybe that's for a separate video, but I will say that there's this kind of, there's a kind of misconception that comes from, untested ambition, where, people will tell you that, oh, well, I can't do, what I want to write, I want to draw, but I couldn't never do that for a living because that would zap all the joy out of it. Okay, so you've never really, that's fine, and that's a real thing. People are saying that, though generally those are people who, they just discover that they don't want to do it through with that much of their day, and realize that they want to prefer it as a hobby, but then they'll apply it to other people. I have been writing every single day for years. I have put more stress into it than anything. I without really getting financial compensation back in any kind of large part, and I'm still there. I'm still in it, and there's a lot of us that are like that. Right, where this kind of platitude comes from is from people who, I like to, do a little bit of carpet, a little bit of fancy woodworking, or make some furniture in my spare, fancy furniture in my spare time. But then, I started doing it for a living and I hate it. Well, because you only did it in your spare time. You never gave yourself, the actual discipline, the time to do it consistently in a low stakes environment to actually see if you were willing to do it for that long. It's a real problem where people will have those experiences. They'll just throw themselves into something that they haven't tested themselves at, doing for a full time on a full time level, and then when they find out they hate it, they apply it as a life lesson. And and again, I'm going to try to dial back to the imposter syndrome thing. We are just so conditioned to think that you making your living off of something you hate doing, or you just dislike or disinterested in, or something you find boring, is so normal, is so ubiquitous, that if you do start making your living off of art, or if you're trying to make your living off of art, people tell you that's not a real job because you don't hate your life enough to do while you're doing it. Okay, and I came to this realization, a few times. So I came into last night because I realized I had to fix up, the Godless cover. I liked what I had before, but it was pointed out to me that, the font was a bit hard to read from a thumbnail thing, and I am putting these online. So I worked on it, I tweaked it, I came up with something better. It's probably what I posted here when I was introducing the book in this video. And, and that was like 5 hours of my life, just spent on a cover. I've already put more hours than I can imagine, and I can't even count the amount of hours I've put into create, because I've created whole cloth myself. I don't use any AI. I don't use any kind of digital assist. I just use freaking like a shit tier, freeware, Photoshop knockoff, and I freaking a drawing tablet, and that's what I do. And my when I'm telling my spouse that I'm working on fixing the cover, all she can say is like, no, you've done it. It's done. She's watched me spend these hours on it. She's been annoyed with me showing her it a million and a half times, understandably. And she, and a lot of people, like, when they'll see me go through a 500-page book on an editing pass when I've already read through it 5 freaking times and is stressed over it, proverbially pulled my hair out over it, and they'll see me going through it again, and they can't wrap their heads around why I'm putting myself through this. Right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how I could be stressed to the gills, just freaking just screaming internally and externally even about just how freaking hard it is to get some sequel written, or how hard it is to get some plot lines together. I've freaking been at night shifts, just fucking shaking with freaking stress over getting something done. At the end of the day, it's always worth it in the end. It's always worth the effort. I never regret the time I spend on that. I never look back, even if it didn't make me money at the time, I never look back and say, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't stressed that much, right? And so when I worked on that cover for a few hours and just kind of lost myself in it, I don't come out of that, thinking. I don't come out of that feeling like I've really worked because I didn't hate the process, and that's what imposter syndrome is, right? I come out with something that's decent. I come out with something that other people think are decent, the people that readers think is good, and I have that imposter syndrome that it can't be good because I didn't hate my life while I did it, even if I stressed and even if I freaking put through the effort, because the effort's worth it for me. There's no shortcuts. You're going to put in effort. You're going to put in hard work, whatever you're doing. Okay, but the difference is how difficult that work feels compared to the other stuff is going to show you what you should be doing. Okay, and going for something artistic and creative, it's not going to be this you kick back and you never worry and you never stress and it's always every day's just a game. It's not a game, and it's not always super fun, but at the end of the day you care about it, and that's why it seems to come easier at the end of the day. You will do work that other people, you'll do commit to word counts and details with drawing and all these things. You will commit to projects that other people will look at and just get stressed out and tired looking at what you've created. And at the end of the day, you won't feel it so much because you cared about what you were doing. That's the secret. The secret isn't to make to work less or to have something come easy. The secret is that you are doing something that you're passionate about and you care about it at that level where the time just goes by. And it's still work. It's still valid work. Listen, the sad thing is people who work shitty construction jobs, I shouldn't say shitty, but the people who work I worked a concrete laying job when I was 20, for a few days at least. That's how much I hated it. I couldn't stand it. It was filthy. It was dirty. It was only a temp thing with my buddy's friend's company or whatnot. So I did it for a little bit, and I hated it. And I had another job already that I was doing full time. So it was kind of me thinking, oh, do I want to transition? I did not want to do that. And so I did this one or two kind of shifts with this, and I hated it and it felt miserable. But you realize that other people working those jobs, they've conditioned themselves, or they've been conditioned, throughout so long in it that it just comes easy. Do they experience imposter syndrome? Maybe. But it just becomes the daily rhythm of their lives to the point where they don't feel it necessarily as much as other people would feel, as much as I felt it. And more power to them, right? That's a perfectly valid way to live your life. But a lot of those people will basically, it's when those people take that mentality of you are miserable or you're not working hard enough, and they apply it to that. It's like, no, you're not as miserable as you think you are. You're not as miserable as that job makes me, because otherwise you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't do it. I've chosen everything, and I've chosen every negative consequence in my life over getting into somewhere where I hated what I was doing that much. I'm always finding a way, every time I've always found a way to keep writing. I will not let something else suck that much of my time and my joy away from me. I just won't. I just can't allow it. And when people kind of come at them, I can almost think like when they say they love their labor jobs, or when they love this job or that job. I mean, do you really love it? Did you care about it naturally, or did you condition yourself to like it? And you know what? That's fine too. If a lot of people don't have the same priorities that myself or other artists out there might have, right? A lot of people is just, what they do on their day to day is kind of inconsequential as long as they can raise their family. Have that. That's fine. More power to you. I want to be doing something I legitimately care about with the maximum amount of my time in my life. That's my priority. I will go into a job where I'll make 2-3 times as much as my writing, could possibly get me, even more, right? I feel like that time is wasted, but I could spend months trying to make the equivalent amount, in writing, and just get just a fraction of the amount in the same time, and I don't consider any of that time wasted, right? And it's having that passion align with income is kind of what artists and writers seek, right? It's not people wanting to do something for the money. It's not some it's not this like get rich quick scheme. It's people who we care about what we're doing. We want to care about what we do. We want the thing that our purpose in this, economic dystopia that we live in. We want our purpose to align with our passion, and to actually go in and feel, and you know what? At the end of the day, we're gonna feel that imposter syndrome because it doesn't feel as miserable to us as those other jobs feel. No amount of stress writing is ever gonna feel as miserable as freaking pouring concrete, or freaking or sweeping up a construction site. No amount of freaking of stress over cover design or writing or formatting or editing is ever going to make me feel is ever going to make me feel worse than a single day in a high stress retail environment. Okay, that's just the way my brain is wired. And a lot of people will look at you weird, and they will not understand the stress and the effort you put in. And it's not just put in to these arts, because they're like, no, I go in, I work my shift at the mall, and then I make my money, and then I don't stress, and then I go home. That's it. Why would you stress yourself more than that? That's it. Their minds are on an outcome basis. All they care about is that they get paid. They don't really care about what they're doing with their time throughout their day. At the end of the day, they care about they've already regulated their entire lives. Everything they love, everything they care about, they have regulated it to the periphery of their existence, to just what they do after they've made money. That is just the natural rhythm that they have taken. That's what they've been taught, and that's what they're going into. And that's why so few people are either entrepreneurial, artistic, or something like that, because it requires this completely different mindset. It's not talent, it's not genius, it's an intolerance to I think Henry Rollins once said it's an intolerance to that day-to-day grind. It's the desire to maybe even put in more work and more hours and more focus and more stress because you care about the output more than what money it makes. And people around you and the societal structures around you will give you imposter syndrome even when you start to succeed at it, when you start to because you didn't hate what you were doing, and therefore you are conditioned to think that it's not worth anything. It's a societal condition. It is something that's been imposed upon you by the environment you live in, that money comes when you're miserable for a certain amount of time every day, and that's how you get money. And if you're not miserable, then you don't deserve that money, or that praise, or that success, or whatever it is. When you're conditioned to feel like that, that is going to be your existence, and that is where I think imposter syndrome comes from. It is an environmental symptom. And I've probably ranted more, quite long enough on this. But I'm just gonna say, like, again, what I've said in another video before: do not let other people decide what your priorities should be. Take the consequences that you can take for living life the way you want. Understand that, it's not everyone else's job to cater to that, and that you are kind of at the end of the day going to kind of be in a meritocracy, and you're going to have to prove yourself, and it's going to take longer than you think. It's going to be a lot of stress and a lot of hardship. But at the end of the day, don't let other people tell you that to just deprioritize that, make it a hobby, just do it for fun, and just stop stressing over it. People will inadvertently, on purpose or not, the people around you will do what they can to just keep you. They don't want to see their friends and their loved ones bent over a desk constantly, even if they're in their off time, trying to chase some dream. They don't want to see the people in their lives just kind of fade out because they're spending too long on some goal that maybe your friends think is impossible. They don't want to see that. They want to see you just like kind of do your part, be happy, not be stressed, and they want to monopolize on your time and energy because they like having you around. It's not a negative thing. It's not coming from a place of maliciousness, at least not consciously for the vast majority of them. But it's a real thing, and you've got to tune that out. You've got to tune it out, and you've got to basically say, listen, this is what's important to me. Yes, I understand the reality. Yes, I understand yes, I know the odds are against me, but this is what I care about in my life. I care about it more than what you care about. I care more than anything else. This is my life. This is my purpose. This is what I've set out to do. This is what I'm doing. And and even if I don't feel, I'm setting out to do something that I care about, and me not feeling miserable doing it is not a sign that I am not putting effort. Me not hating myself every day does not make me an imposter, and it does not make me lazy. Okay? It doesn't. Life isn't an endurance test. Life isn't an endurance test. You're not being rewarded for the misery you put in. You're being rewarded for the caliber of your work. And if you can find something where you're working and you're happy doing it, then Godspeed. Then that's what you should be doing, even if it's not something artistic or creative. But don't ever make someone make you feel that because you enjoyed what you were doing, it wasn't real work, and you don't deserve the fruits of your labor. I don't know. That's just my rant for the new year. It's 2025. Number go up. I just celebrated it the other. It's the second now, and that's all I had to say. Like I said, you check out my books. Links in the description if you want. Godless, book 1 of the Zadra Cycle, coming out in May. I'm Ed Nile. Stay safe out there and peace out. Bye.